Chosen one, before anything else is said, pause for a moment. Let your breathing slow. Let the noise around you settle. There is a reason you are here right now, at this exact moment, hearing these words. This is not coincidence. This is not random timing. This is not simply another video passing through your screen. There has been a divine alignment, unseen but intentional, that brought you here because heaven has been drawing your attention to one specific truth. God is pointing to one person connected to your destiny. And what makes this moment heavy, what makes it feel different from all the others, is that the name of this person has already passed through your thoughts. You did not plan it. You did not summon it. It surfaced on its own, quietly, unexpectedly, almost like a whisper that refused to be ignored. That is not imagination. That is recognition. Chosen one, there are moments when God does not shout. He does not thunder. He does not shake the earth. Instead, he places a weight on the heart, a gentle pressure, a persistent awareness, something that keeps returning, not with anxiety, but with clarity. That is what is happening now. There is someone God is pointing to, and this person is not random. They are not interchangeable. They are not symbolic of many. They are specific, singular, appointed. And the reason the name will surprise you is because it does not align with the assumptions you once made, the timeline you expected, or the version of events you tried to force. You have lived through seasons where you questioned your discernment. You wondered if your heart was misleading you, if your hope was naive, if your faith had caused you to attach meaning where none existed. But hear this carefully, chosen one. God does not confuse his children. He does not play games with their hearts. When he allows a name to resurface again and again, it is not to torment you, it is to prepare you. There has been preparation happening beneath the surface of your life. While you thought nothing was moving, while you believed delays meant denial, while silence felt like abandonment, God was repositioning both you and this person separately, not together yet, separately, because alignment requires maturity, not urgency. Think about how Joseph was separated from everything familiar before he could be reunited with purpose. Think about how David was anointed long before the throne appeared. Think about how Ruth could not meet Boaz until she left one land and entered another. Separation is not rejection, it is refinement. This is why this message feels intense. You are standing at the edge of a reveal, not because everything is about to be handed to you instantly, but because your perception is being sharpened. God is adjusting how you see this person, no longer through memory alone, no longer through emotion alone, but through spiritual clarity. Chosen one, the enemy tried to bury this connection under disappointment. He tried to distort it with misunderstanding. He tried to suffocate it with time, but time does not erase what God marks, it only tests it. You may have said to yourself, I am done thinking about them. I released it. I moved on. I surrendered it to God. And yet, here you are again, not because you failed to let go, but because God never asked you to forget. He asked you to trust. There is a difference. When God removes something, it loses its pull. When God preserves something, it may disappear for a season, but it never loses its significance. That is why the thought of this person does not feel chaotic. It feels quiet. It feels serious. It feels weighty, like unfinished business written into your spirit. Chosen one, you are not chasing someone. You are being prepared to recognize alignment when it reveals itself. This is not about romance alone. It is not about emotion alone. It is about assignment. It is about purpose intersecting purpose. It is about God restoring what was interrupted, correcting what was misunderstood, and revealing what was hidden beneath human limitations. Some of you believed this person was gone forever. Some of you believed they were only a lesson. Some of you believed God had replaced them. But what God replaces, He removes fully. What He refines, He revisits. The reason the name will surprise you is because you had mentally closed that chapter. You labeled it finished. You archived it. You told yourself it no longer mattered. And that was necessary for your growth. But now, something has shifted. not in your emotions first, but in the spiritual atmosphere around you. You are entering a season where God no longer speaks in fragments, He speaks in confirmations. This is the opening of a prophetic unveiling, not of fantasy, not of false hope, but of divine clarity. You are not being asked to act yet. You are not being asked to reach out yet. You are not being asked to decide anything yet. You are being asked to listen. Because when God points, He does so with intention. And when He highlights one person out of many, it is because that person is tied to something far greater than companionship. They are tied to your next level of obedience, growth, and destiny. Stay with this message, chosen one. What is unfolding next will bring understanding to what once confused you, peace to what once troubled you, and discernment to what once felt uncertain. This is only the beginning. Chosen one, now that your spirit has been quieted and your awareness has been stirred, it is time to move deeper into what God is revealing. This is not revelation meant to excite the emotions alone. This is revelation meant to settle the heart and sharpen discernment. What God is showing now requires maturity to receive, because it corrects assumptions you once carried and reframes a story you thought you already understood. God is pointing to one person, and He is doing it deliberately, not loudly, not dramatically, but with precision. The revelation is not arriving as a sudden shock. It is arriving as a steady realization, a knowing that unfolds layer by layer. This is how God speaks when something matters deeply. He reveals it in a way that cannot be manipulated or rushed. What God is showing first is not who this person is to you, but who they have been becoming when you were not watching. There were seasons when you assumed they were stagnant, distracted, or unchanged. You may have believed they were repeating the same cycles, making the same mistakes, or choosing paths that disqualified them from your future. But God allowed you to see only fragments. He shielded you from the full process because had you seen it too early, you might have interfered. Chosen one, God often hides transformation until it is rooted. This person has been in a hidden season, a season where God stripped away false identities, external validation, and misplaced confidence. A season where pride was confronted, fear was exposed, and motives were purified. What you saw on the surface did not reflect the internal work God was doing, and what God was doing internally could not be rushed without damaging the outcome. The revelation now is not about their perfection, it is about their posture. God is showing you that this person has been learning obedience in quiet places, learning humility without applause, learning discernment through loss. These are not lessons that show up publicly, they show up in character. You are being shown this not so you can idealize them, but so you can understand the timing. God is also revealing why confusion surrounded this connection in the past. It was not because it was false, it was because it was premature. You were both hearing God, but at different levels of readiness. One of you was ahead in awareness, the other ahead in endurance. Alignment requires both. Think of how Samuel anointed David while Saul still sat on the throne. David was chosen, but not positioned, anointed, but not established. The anointing did not remove the process, it initiated it. This is the same principle at work here. Chosen one, God is showing you that what once felt like rejection was actually protection. There were battles you were spared because you were not yet equipped to fight them together. There were pressures that would have crushed the connection before it could mature. God allowed distance not to weaken the bond, but to strengthen the individuals within it. Another layer of revelation God is releasing is this. The name surprises you because you associated it with an old version of both of you, but God does not deal in old versions. He deals in redeemed ones. You are not being pointed back to the past. You are being pointed forward to a refined intersection. God is also exposing how the enemy attempted to counterfeit this connection through distractions, people who looked similar, situations that felt familiar, Emotional attachments that mimicked depth but lacked spiritual weight. These were not mistakes. They were contrasts. They trained your discernment. They clarified what this connection is not, so you could recognize what it is. Chosen one, the enemy always rushes what God has scheduled. That is why false connections feel intense quickly but collapse under pressure. What God ordains may unfold slowly, but it carries endurance. Another important revelation God is releasing is that this person carries something you need for the next phase of your calling, and you carry something they need. This is not dependency. This is alignment. There is a complementary nature to this connection that goes beyond personality or preference. It touches assignment. This is why spiritual resistance increased whenever you tried to move forward prematurely or cut the cord entirely. The resistance was not random. It was strategic. The enemy recognized the potential of what could be built through obedience and unity. God is not revealing this to pull you backward emotionally. He is revealing it to anchor you forward spiritually. You are being shown that the delay was intentional, the silence was purposeful, and the confusion was temporary. The revelation now is bringing order where there was once chaos. Chosen one, this does not mean action is required immediately. Revelation precedes instruction. Understanding comes before movement. God is still leading. What He wants you to see right now is this: the story was never finished. It was paused, and pauses in God are not signs of abandonment, they are moments of recalibration. As you continue listening, you will begin to understand not only who this person is, but why this connection matters now more than ever. What comes next will explain the spiritual mechanics behind this timing and why heaven waited until this precise season to speak. Stay attentive, chosen one. The clarity is increasing. Chosen one, what God is revealing now requires patience to absorb, because it answers the question your heart has asked in quiet moments. Why now? Why after so much time? Why after so many tears, prayers, and attempts to move forward? The answer is not simple, but it is precise. This is happening now because alignment has finally caught up with assignment. God does not move according to emotional urgency. He moves according to spiritual readiness. There were earlier moments when desire was present, when intention existed, when even faith was active, but readiness was incomplete. God will never join two lives, two purposes, or two destinies until both have been shaped enough to sustain what He intends to build through them. In earlier seasons, this connection would have been burdened by insecurity, misunderstanding, or misplaced expectations. You would have required this person to fill spaces that only God could fill. They would have leaned on you in ways that drained rather than strengthened. God delays connections not because they are wrong, but because they would become distorted without maturity. Chosen one, timing is not about waiting for circumstances to improve. It is about waiting for identity to stabilize. This is why God allowed you to walk alone for longer than you expected. Solitude was not punishment, it was training. In solitude, your voice became clearer, your boundaries became firmer, your discernment became sharper. You learned to hear God without confirmation from others. That was necessary. At the same time, God was doing a different work in this person. Where you were being trained in clarity, they were being trained in surrender. Where you were learning confidence, they were learning humility. Where you were learning vision, they were learning obedience. God often prepares people differently so they can meet each other balanced rather than competing. This is happening now because both of you have reached a threshold, not perfection, but stability, not completeness, but awareness. God does not wait for flawlessness, He waits for teachability. There is also a spiritual principle at work that must be understood. God allows delay to expose idols. Anything that is rushed has the potential to become a substitute for God rather than a vessel of His will. If this connection had happened earlier, it may have carried more weight than it should have. It might have become central rather than supportive to your purpose. Now, your identity is no longer entangled with needing someone to validate your worth, and that changes everything. Chosen one, this is why the emotional charge feels different now. There is less desperation, less anxiety, less fantasy, more peace, more seriousness, more groundedness. That shift is not accidental, it is evidence of readiness. God is also allowing this to happen now because your discernment has been refined enough to recognize truth without illusion. In the past, you might have projected potential rather than observed reality. You might have filled gaps with hope rather than wisdom. Now you see clearly, and clarity protects destiny. Another reason this is unfolding now is because spiritual warfare surrounding this connection has intensified, not because it is fragile, but because it is effective. The enemy does not waste energy on what has no impact. Resistance increases when something is about to align. You may have noticed unusual opposition, sudden doubts, random distractions, emotional heaviness without clear cause. These are not signs to retreat, they are signs to stay alert. When God is about to connect purpose, the enemy attempts to confuse perception. Chosen one, you must understand this clearly. The enemy cannot stop what God has ordained. He can only attempt to distort how you respond to it. That is why discernment is critical in this season. God is also using this timing to teach patience in manifestation. Not everything God reveals is meant to be acted upon immediately. Some revelations are meant to anchor you so that when movement comes, you move without fear or confusion. This season is about internal alignment before external expression. Another layer of understanding is this. God is revealing the person now because the purpose connected to them is approaching activation. There are doors opening in your life, new responsibilities, new visibility, new influence. God does not elevate without alignment. He does not expand without support structures. This person is not meant to distract you from your calling. They are meant to support it, but support only works when both individuals understand their role. Chosen one, God is also correcting the narrative you told yourself. You believed the delay meant loss. God says it meant preservation. You believed the silence meant rejection. God says it meant refinement. You believed the distance meant disconnection. God says it meant protection. This is happening now because heaven is shifting from preparation to positioning. Do not rush ahead of God. Do not retreat into fear. Remain attentive. Remain grounded. Remain obedient. What unfolds next will not come through force, but through clarity and confirmation. In the next part, you will begin to recognize the signs and confirmations that God has been sending, some of which you may have overlooked or misunderstood. These signs are not mystical or dramatic. They are consistent, precise, and unmistakable to those who are paying attention. Stay with this message, Chosen One. The pattern is becoming visible. Chosen One, this is the part where clarity replaces doubt, where you begin to understand that what you sensed was not random emotion, not wishful thinking, and not your heart misleading you. God has been sending confirmations, but they were subtle enough to require spiritual attentiveness rather than emotional reaction. Many people miss them because they expect signs to be dramatic. God often speaks through consistency, not spectacle. The first confirmation you may have noticed was repetition, not obsession, not fixation, but recurrence. This person's name resurfacing at unexpected moments, not when you were lonely, but when you were stable, not when you were seeking them, but when your mind was occupied elsewhere. That is a key distinction. Emotional attachment seeks, spiritual confirmation interrupts. God repeats what matters. You may have tried to dismiss it. You told yourself it was memory, habit, familiarity, but memory fades when God removes significance. Habit loses power when God closes a door. The reason this name kept returning is because the door was never sealed. It was only held closed until the right season. Another confirmation came through emotional neutrality. When you thought of this person recently, it did not produce chaos or longing. It produced stillness. That is important. God does not confirm through anxiety. He confirms through peace. Even when the revelation is serious, it carries calm, not confusion. Chosen one, peace is not the absence of feeling. It is the absence of pressure. You may also have noticed that conversations around you began to echo themes connected to this person. Not direct references, but parallels, stories that mirrored your experience, words spoken by others that answered questions you never asked out loud. These were not coincidences. God often confirms through external alignment when internal clarity begins to form. There were also moments of resistance that served as confirmation. When you attempted to fully close the door emotionally, something held you back. Not fear, not attachment, discernment, a quiet restraint. God often restrains before He reveals. That restraint was not weakness, it was wisdom being formed. Another sign was how your prayers shifted. You stopped asking God to remove them from your heart. Instead, you began asking for understanding. That transition matters. It shows spiritual maturity. When your prayers evolve, it means your perception has changed. Chosen one, God also confirmed this through timing. You are not in the same place you were before. Your standards are higher, your identity is stronger, your discernment is sharper. If this connection were false, it would have faded as you grew. Instead, it became clearer. That is confirmation. You may have also noticed that other connections began to feel hollow, not bad, just empty. Conversations lacked depth. Potential felt forced. Attraction existed, but alignment did not. God allows contrast to highlight truth. When something is real, counterfeits feel increasingly uncomfortable. Another confirmation is the absence of striving. You have not felt compelled to chase, explain, or manipulate outcomes. That restraint is not indifference, it is trust. When God is involved, urgency gives way to assurance. Chosen one, there is also confirmation in how this message itself resonates, not because it flatters you, but because it aligns with what you have already sensed. True confirmation does not introduce something foreign, it illuminates what was already forming. God is also confirming through your discernment regarding timing. You do not feel rushed. You do not feel delayed. You feel positioned. That awareness comes only when you are aligned with divine timing rather than personal expectation. There is another sign that many overlook: growth without bitterness. You have healed without becoming hardened. You have learned without becoming cynical. That tells you the story was not meant to end in loss. It was meant to mature into understanding. Chosen one, confirmation does not mean clarity about every detail. It means clarity about direction. God is not revealing the entire path yet. He is confirming that you are facing the right way. Some of you also experienced dreams or impressions that did not feel symbolic, but relational. Not dramatic imagery, but simple moments, conversations, encounters. These are often confirmations because God speaks in relational language when the message concerns relationship. Another confirmation is how the thought of this person does not compete with your purpose. It does not distract you. It does not pull you off course. It feels integrated, not intrusive. That matters. God never confirms through division. Chosen one, do not dismiss what God has been patiently showing you. Confirmation is cumulative. One sign alone can be questioned. Many signs forming a pattern cannot. This is not about acting yet. It is about recognizing that God has been consistent, and consistency is one of His clearest signatures. In the next part, we will move into encouragement and empowerment, because understanding alone is not enough. God does not reveal without strengthening. What He is showing you now requires confidence, patience, and discernment to steward properly. Stay attentive. You are seeing clearly now. Chosen one, now that clarity has begun to settle in your spirit, God is shifting the focus. Revelation without empowerment can feel heavy. Understanding without strength can feel overwhelming. That is why God never reveals without also equipping. What He is showing you about this person is not meant to weaken you or pull you backward emotionally. It is meant to steady you and position you with confidence. You are not being asked to wait in uncertainty. You are being invited to stand in assurance. This season is not about longing, it is about grounding. God is strengthening your inner posture so that whatever unfolds next, you respond from peace rather than pressure. That alone is evidence of growth. Earlier versions of you may have reacted impulsively, emotionally, or defensively. This version of you listens first. That matters. Chosen one, God wants you to understand this clearly. You are not lacking anything in this moment. You are not incomplete without this person. You are not paused until something happens externally. You are whole, anchored, and actively walking in purpose right now. That wholeness is what makes alignment possible. This is where empowerment begins. God is encouraging you to remain present in your life. Continue building, continue obeying, continue showing up fully where you are planted. Do not shrink your focus to one outcome. When God intends to connect two paths, He ensures both paths are moving forward independently. Momentum attracts alignment. There is also empowerment in restraint. You are not meant to initiate conversations driven by anxiety. You are not meant to seek clarity prematurely. God is training you to trust His orchestration rather than your interpretation. That trust is strength. Chosen one, strength in this season looks like emotional discipline. It looks like guarding your thoughts. It looks like refusing to replay old narratives that no longer apply. The past version of the story does not define the future version of the connection. God is also empowering you to release control. You do not need to manage outcomes. You do not need to anticipate responses. You do not need to rehearse scenarios. Control drains energy that obedience preserves. Another layer of empowerment is discernment in communication. Be mindful of who you share this with. Not everyone understands divine timing. Some people interpret delay as failure. Others project their own disappointments onto your situation. Guard what God is doing quietly. Sacred things grow best in protected environments. Chosen one, you are also being empowered to recognize your worth without negotiation. This season is not about settling or compromising standards. It is about alignment at the level of values, faith, and purpose. God does not reconnect what He has not refined. If alignment occurs, it will reflect mutual respect, maturity, and shared direction. You are not waiting to be chosen, you are already chosen. That distinction changes how you carry yourself. God is also strengthening your patience, not passive patience, but active patience, the kind that continues to serve, grow, and obey without resentment. Active patience is one of the clearest indicators of spiritual maturity. You may feel moments of emotional fluctuation. That is human. Empowerment does not mean numbness. It means regulation. You acknowledge feelings without letting them lead. Chosen one, God is reminding you that timing is not about delay. It is about precision. When alignment occurs at the right time, clarity replaces confusion, peace replaces anxiety, and direction replaces speculation. That is what God is preparing you for. Another form of empowerment is this: you are not responsible for fixing the past. You are not responsible for correcting misunderstandings that God allowed. You are not responsible for proving your growth. God will handle what needs to be addressed when the time comes. Your responsibility is to remain obedient and grounded. God is also empowering you to trust silence. Silence does not mean nothing is happening. Silence often means something important is forming. Seeds grow underground before they break the surface. Chosen one, this season is about strengthening your internal foundation. When something meaningful enters your life, it should add weight without adding instability. God is ensuring you are stable enough to carry what is coming. You are not behind, you are not late, you are not overlooked, you are exactly where you need to be. In the next part, God will bring a necessary warning, not to create fear, but to sharpen discernment. Every significant alignment attracts interference. Understanding that protects what God is building. Remain attentive, remain grounded. You are being strengthened for what lies ahead. Chosen one, this is the part of the message that requires sobriety. Not fear, not suspicion, but awareness. Every time God highlights something meaningful, discernment becomes essential. What God is doing in this season is delicate, and delicate things must be handled with wisdom. This warning is not meant to create distance from what God is revealing. It is meant to protect it. When God begins to align destinies, the enemy does not always attack directly. More often, he introduces distortion. He whispers half-truths. He accelerates timing. He provokes emotional reactions. His goal is not always destruction. Sometimes it is disruption. You must understand this clearly. Discernment in this season is not about doubting God. It is about guarding your response. One of the first warnings God gives is this: do not resurrect old wounds in the name of clarity. There is a temptation to revisit the past emotionally, to replay conversations, to re-examine moments of hurt, or to mentally rehearse what you would say if given the chance. That is not healing. That is reopening what God already closed for a reason. God will address what needs to be addressed in the right moment, in the right way, through the right posture. Your role is not to initiate emotional excavations. Your role is to remain grounded. Another warning is about false urgency. The enemy often creates pressure to act quickly when God is asking you to wait quietly. Urgency produces anxiety. God produces peace. If you feel pushed to make a move to avoid loss, that push is not from God. Chosen one, nothing God has for you can be stolen by patience. There is also a warning regarding interpretation. Do not assign meaning to every small sign. Discernment requires balance. Over-spiritualizing creates confusion just as much as ignoring spiritual insight. God confirms clearly. He does not tease. If you find yourself stretching interpretations to feel reassured, pause. Clarity will not require effort. Another area of discernment involves external voices. Not everyone around you is aligned with where God is taking you. Some people speak from experience, not revelation. Others speak from fear, not faith. Be cautious whose counsel you allow to shape your perception. Chosen one, God often speaks to you directly when the matter is sensitive. Outsourcing discernment in this season can dilute clarity. There is also a warning about emotional vulnerability. You may feel softer toward this person, more reflective, more open. That softness is not weakness, but it must be stewarded. Do not offer emotional access prematurely. Boundaries are not walls, they are guardians of wisdom. Another critical warning is about counterfeits. When God prepares a realignment, the enemy may send a distraction that looks promising, feels intense, and demands quick commitment. Counterfeits often arrive with urgency, flattery, and emotional highs. They lack patience, depth, and spiritual alignment. Chosen one, anything that pulls you away from peace, obedience, or clarity is not from God, no matter how attractive it appears. God is also warning against comparison. Do not measure this situation against others. Do not let timelines you observe in others create pressure in you. God's work in your life is specific. Comparison clouds discernment and invites unnecessary frustration. Another warning is about expectations. Do not script how this must unfold. When you attempt to control the outcome, you risk missing the way God actually moves. Expectation rooted in faith remains flexible. Expectation rooted in control becomes rigid. Chosen one, trust God's method, not just His promise. There is also a warning about emotional isolation. Guarding your heart does not mean withdrawing from healthy support. Stay connected to God through prayer, reflection, and stillness. Discernment weakens when isolation replaces intimacy with God. One of the most important warnings is this: do not confuse spiritual revelation with relational permission. God revealing something does not automatically mean you are meant to act immediately. Revelation often prepares the heart before the door opens. Timing is part of obedience. Another subtle warning involves self-doubt. The enemy may attempt to convince you that you imagine this, that you are reading too much into it, or that you are being foolish. Discernment is not doubting your perception. It is testing it with peace and consistency. If clarity remains without anxiety, it is from God. Chosen one, you are not being led by emotion. You are being led by awareness. Finally, God warns against settling spiritually. This season is not about compromise. It is about alignment. Do not lower standards out of fear of missing out. What God aligns will meet you at the level of growth He required you to reach. These warnings are not barriers, they are safeguards. In the next part, God will speak a final prophetic message about destiny, purpose, and what this alignment means in the larger picture of your calling. What is coming is not small, it is not casual, it is intentional. Remain attentive, remain grounded. You are being protected as much as you are being prepared. Chosen one, what God is revealing now is not about curiosity, it is about destiny. This is where the message moves beyond the question of who and into the understanding of why. God does not align people casually. He aligns purpose, assignment, and timing. When He points to one person, it is because that person is woven into a chapter of your life that carries weight. This alignment is not meant to distract you from your calling. It is meant to strengthen it. There is a misconception that meaningful connections slow progress. In God, true alignment accelerates growth, but acceleration only happens when both individuals are positioned correctly. That is why God took His time. That is why separation existed. That is why silence was allowed. Destiny cannot be rushed without being damaged. Chosen one, God is showing you that this connection sits at the intersection of obedience and purpose. It is not merely about companionship. It is about shared direction. There is a work that requires unity of vision, even if the expression of that vision differs. You carry something this person needs in order to walk fully in what God has called them to do, and they carry something that stabilizes and supports what God is building in you. This is not dependency, it is partnership. Partnership in God multiplies impact. This is why this alignment matters. God is also revealing that this person is connected to your next level of responsibility. With expansion comes weight. With visibility comes pressure. God often assigns people not to elevate status, but to provide grounding, not to increase noise, but to increase discernment. Chosen one, God is not preparing you for ease. He is preparing you for effectiveness. This connection is also about restoration of trust. Not only trust between two people, but trust in God's process. You believed at one point that disappointment had the final word. God is showing you that He had the final say all along. Restoration does not always look like returning to what was. Sometimes it looks like redeeming what was misunderstood and allowing it to mature into something stronger. God is also revealing that this alignment will require continued humility. Destiny connections do not remove the need for growth. They expose it. This will not be a connection where one leads and the other follows blindly. It will require mutual listening, mutual submission to God, and mutual accountability. Chosen one, alignment does not erase difference, it honors it. Another part of this prophetic message is this: you are entering a season where God is consolidating your life. He is removing excess, simplifying focus, clarifying priorities, This connection fits into that consolidation. It does not complicate, it integrates. God is also reminding you that destiny unfolds progressively. This alignment will not reveal everything at once. Trust will build step by step. Understanding will deepen over time. God values sustainability over intensity. You may be tempted to romanticize what God is doing. Resist that. Romance fades, purpose endures. What God is aligning will endure because it is anchored in obedience, not emotion. Chosen one, this alignment is also about timing in the spiritual realm. There are assignments that could not activate until certain agreements were made in the unseen. Prayer, surrender, forgiveness. These things shift spiritual atmospheres. What you could not see was the groundwork being laid. God is now bringing things into the light because the foundation is strong enough to support it. There is also a prophetic reassurance here. You will not lose yourself in this connection. You will not shrink. You will not be silenced. Alignment in God amplifies identity. It does not erase it. Chosen one, you are not being asked to chase destiny. Destiny meets obedience. As this unfolds, you will recognize confirmation not through dramatic moments, but through steady peace, through clarity in conversation, through alignment in values, through ease in direction. God's fingerprints are subtle but unmistakable. This is not a fairy tale. It is a calling intersecting with another calling. In the final part, we will seal this message with a gentle prophetic blessing. Not hype, not pressure, just peace. What God has revealed, He will sustain. Remain still, remain trusting. The final word is coming. Chosen one, take a moment here. Do not rush forward. This closing is not something to pass through quickly. It is something to settle into. When God concludes a revelation, He does not do it abruptly. He does it gently, the way a craftsman sets a final seal on something valuable so it cannot be tampered with before its time. What you have received through this message was never meant to stir impatience. It was meant to quiet striving. If at any point you felt a softening instead of excitement, a calm instead of urgency, that is how you know this was God. Heaven does not rush the heart, it steadies it. You are not walking away from this message with instructions. You are walking away with alignment. Alignment does not demand action. Alignment produces readiness. Chosen one, it is important you understand this. Revelation does not mean immediacy. God often reveals things long before He activates them, not to tease you, but to prepare your posture. When the heart is prepared, the outcome does not overwhelm it. The person God has pointed to does not now become the center of your attention. God remains the center. That is how this stays healthy. That is how this stays clean. That is how this unfolds without emotional collapse or spiritual confusion. If at any moment after this message you feel tempted to replay every detail, analyze every memory, or imagine every possible scenario, pause. That impulse does not come from revelation. It comes from fear trying to regain control. Release it. God did not ask you to figure this out. He asked you to trust Him with what He has already arranged. You are not being tested right now. You are being settled. Chosen one, you have already passed through seasons that broke lesser versions of you. You survived uncertainty, silence, disappointment, and waiting without answers. You did not emerge bitter. You did not harden your heart. You did not abandon your faith. That alone tells you that God has been shaping you for something that required endurance. This is not about being rewarded. It is about being ready. As you move forward from this message, do not measure progress by external movement. Measure it by internal peace. Peace is the signal that heaven is holding what concerns you. Anxiety is the signal that control is being challenged. Choose peace again and again. There may be days ahead where nothing seems to change. Those days are not wasted. They are stabilizing days. God does some of His most important work when nothing appears to be happening. Chosen one, resist the temptation to interpret silence as inactivity. God often works quietly when the foundation must remain undisturbed. Loud processes attract interference. Quiet processes mature without resistance. You do not need to protect what God is protecting. There will come a moment when what you now know internally becomes clear externally. When that moment arrives, it will not feel dramatic. It will feel right. God does not introduce destiny with chaos. He introduces it with recognition. Until then, continue walking faithfully where you are. Continue building your life. Continue honoring God in your choices. Continue strengthening your discernment. Nothing about obedience delays destiny. Obedience positions it. Chosen one, may your heart remain guarded without becoming closed. May your mind remain thoughtful without becoming anxious. May your spirit remain open without becoming exposed. May you trust God's pace even when it does not match human expectation. May you resist comparison when others seem to move faster. May you remain confident even when nothing outward confirms what God has spoken inwardly. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are not misled. You are positioned. God is not scrambling to make this work. He already accounted for every delay, every detour, every misunderstanding, and every quiet season. Nothing has caught him off guard. Chosen one, rest in this truth. What God has aligned does not require force. It unfolds naturally when the time is right. And when it unfolds, it will not cost you your peace, your identity, or your obedience. It will add to your life, not consume it. Remain attentive. Remain grounded. Continue listening. This chapter is sealed, not finished. And what God has ordained will surface with clarity, stability, and purpose at the appointed time. Chosen one, before you go, take one small step. If this message spoke to you and you want to stay aligned with what God is revealing in this season, subscribe to this channel. These messages are released intentionally, and remaining connected ensures you do not miss what is meant for you. If this resonated deeply, take a moment to like this video. It helps this message reach others who are also listening for clarity and confirmation. And if you feel led, leave a simple comment below. You do not need to explain your story. You can simply write, "I receive." That act of agreement matters more than you realize. Stay here. Stay connected. Continue listening. More is coming for those who are paying attention.